I am fairly certain that given a cape and a nice tiara, I could save the world. Don't you love that idea? Could save the world? I actually have a small plaque that hangs in my office that has those words on it reminding me, because I kind of like the idea. Fairly certain that given a cape and a nice tiara, I could save the world. I think at times we all know that feeling, don't we? If we were in charge, I could fix it. I could build it. I could create it. I could do this if I were in charge. Sadly, I think that the cape and tiara approach to mission has been the motto of church outreach for a long time. We identify a project and we show up to save. We've got our capes on. We identify this project. We go into a community where people are different than we are. It may be a different language. It may be a different education. It may be a different country, but they're different than we are. And we determine what they need. You're nodding your head, Jackie. We determine what they need. We call it mission, but really it's more of a project than anything else. We see what they need. We put on our capes, we put on our tiaras, and we show up to save the world because we know what they need. We have what they need, and we like what we have, so they should like what we have. It doesn't matter who the we is. It doesn't matter who the they is. This has been our model for church mission and outreach. As people who have resources, who are called by faith to be servants of Christ, we assume we know what others need. After all, our life is on an ordered path, right? God's called us to serve. We're on a mission. But before service comes relationship, and we often forget that very important step. In all good intentions, in hopes to help, we're clear we can change the world, and we're clear how to do it. We go to serve, but too often we go without having developed a relationship, and spoken to the community, made friends, built that relationship, spent more time listening and learning than teaching and fixing. Now, some of you are shifting uncomfortably in your seats, and that's okay. Inside, you may be thinking, but I like my cape. There's nothing wrong with a good cape. I worked hard for this cape. I prefer to be in control. I resonate with that emotion. I like to lead the charge. I can do this. And I'll let others come along with me. And then for some, I guess, the cape becomes a form of protection. The cape is a safety barrier, maybe? A sign and a symbol of power that separates the people who have capes from the people who do not have capes. The cape creates a safety zone, safe from the messiness. For many years, the church has seen this as a central part of mission and outreach, the importance of distributing stuff. We give away things, whether it be food or coats or toys, but for this, we're just simply giving away stuff. We're doing a project for somebody. We think we need this particular stuff, so everybody ought to need our particular stuff. We like our stuff, we think they should like our stuff. There's a piece missing in this approach. It's a key piece, it's a vital piece, the relationship and any sort of long-term transformation in either a life or a community. In giveaways and short-term projects, there's this sense of there's no sense of walking with a community. We just show up. because we've got the cape on, and we're blinded by the cape. The cape holds us captives in our own lives and blinds us from what is the godly relationship that we are called to develop with others. But relationships can be messy. Relationships take time. And that's tough when you know the answer already, right? And you got the cape. In his groundbreaking book, Toxic Charity, Robert Lupton looks at how and why we do mission as the church, and how our best intentions may be hurting rather than helping. Churches, he says, churches want their members to feel good about serving the poor, and no one really wants to become involved in messy relationships. Lupton goes on to say, most mission trips and service projects do not empower those being served, engender healthy cross-cultural relationships, improve local quality of life, or relieve poverty. I agree with Lupton and would suggest and invite the church to consider it's time for a new way of being in mission with one another in the world. We are a dynamic and changing people. We serve a dynamic and changing God who's always creating. It's time for a new way to do mission and to be in mission. The ancient words from the scripture, James 3:13, put it this way: who is wise and understanding among you? Show your good life that your works are done with gentleness and wisdom. Nothing is mentioned about good works being done with stuff or projects. Gentleness and wisdom are godly virtues that come from being in relationship with people. And from the core of that relationship, together, we can work to transform through a journey of relationship, and it draws us closer to God. My friend and colleague Shelley Ross puts it this way: God does not consider me a project. I worship a God that cannot let me go. I worship a God who is in a deep, abiding, continual relationship with me, not a God that says, I'm a mission or a stop-and-go seasonal project. This type godly love opens all of us to radical transformation in our lives. So often in this model, those who seek to serve are transformed even more than the folks we seek to transform. This requires trusting Christ, a willingness to follow a new model, a model that gets messy, gets uncomfortable. Are you willing to risk your comfortable normal to be transformed? The story of Wesley-Rankin has been one of transformation. I'll tell you one example of a radical way that someone took a chance to risk their normal. Chewy worked for us at Wesley-Rankin as a summer intern, and while he was there, fell in love with teaching. He was working with the kindergartners, and it was a wild and unruly bunch who absolutely adored Chewy. And Chewy, through that summer, really felt called to be a teacher. So he finished his 2 years of community college, and he applied to UNT in Denton. So excited, one of the best education schools around. He came into my office and he said, Sarah, guess what? I got into UNT. I'm going to be a teacher. And I said, oh, Chewy, of course I'm crying. I went to UNT, Chewy, that's where I studied education. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. Where are you going to live? And he said, I met this friend of mine. He said he knew somebody who might have a room, and he hemmed and hawed. And he finally said, I don't have a place to live. But Sarah, I've got to do this. I can't give up. So we made a phone call from Wesley-Rankin to someone with whom we're in relationship and said, we've got this kid. And 24 hours later, Chewy had bag in hand and was headed to Denton. He had never met this family. It just turns out that 2 retired education professors from UNT were going on sabbatical to Turkey for the semester, and said he could come, he could take care of their animals and live in their home. Sight unseen. The first night, he said, Sarah, I was sitting on the edge of my bed in the bedroom they gave me, and I was just looking around. He said, I didn't want to touch anything. And he said, I heard a little knock on the door, and it was Mary, the mom. He opened the door, and Mary said, Chewy, would you like to come and have dinner with us? He said, Sarah, I was so thankful because I didn't have any food and I didn't have any money. And so he went out to the dinner table. He said, Sarah, I've never seen anything like it. He said, this whole table was set. There were all these dishes and all these pieces of silverware, and there was some decoration in the middle. And he said, then under every single dish, on every single plate, there was a bright colored piece of cloth. He said he'd never seen anything like it before. It was a placemat. It was a placemat. So despite the fact that the cat died the second week he was there, and it was not his fault. The cat was meant to die. We just didn't know it would be that soon. But anyway, despite that, no, Chewy stayed there the semester. They invited him back for a second semester. The long story short of it is now he's lived with them 2 years, and he's getting ready to graduate. He's made straight A's, and he said, you know, Sarah, I couldn't disappoint them. They believed in me. That's a relationship. They are a lifetime in a relationship now. That's family. That's family. We're all recovering stuff givers, right? So how will we take that first step? Take a chance in losing the cape, getting involved in a godly relationship, a transformational relationship? You have so many ways around here. VBS. You could be a part of Mad Camp. You could be a part of Kids Eat Free. All of those are that first step to lose the cape and to be a part of a transformational, godly relationship. The story of Wesley-Rankin has been transformed from the moment we began to focus on true kingdom transformation in godly relationships. Our normal is now driven by the community. Not by what Sarah thinks, not by what the staff thinks, but by the community. Who am I to show up as Wesley-Rankin and with my cape and say, I've come to save the day, I have all the answers for your community? That's not how it works. True transformation involves a relationship. We no longer make decisions from a perspective of the cape. We talk with the community. We listen more than we speak. We learn more than we teach. We're becoming partners with the community, and it shows in so many kingdom relationships that have developed, like Chewy's and others. The story of Wesley-Rankin has also combined and become intertwined with the story of Trietsch. It was an interesting path. Folks like Kim Beck, Pam Taylor, Jan Deering, Karen, so many others. I'm looking around, Jackie, Patty, everybody around. Have connected us and become intertwined with the work that we're doing. You have witnessed to the transformative love of Christ. It's unlikely friendships. Who would have thunk? Who would have thunk? Some folks from far north Dallas. I call it southern Oklahoma when I was driving in this morning from Dallas. Who would have thought that you would be in close godly relationships with children from West Dallas? Changing lives. 5 years ago, it started with an email. A church had committed to host a week of music and art camp for our kids. And at the very last minute, they canceled. And kids registered. They were coming to camp. I had to do something. I sent an email out and said, please, I'm desperate. Who can help? Who can help? I need somebody who'll host us for a week of music and arts camp. And it won't surprise you that Karen Kraska, like 7 seconds later, was the first response I had. And she said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but bring them on. Bring them on. And then the team of Trietsch surrounded her and brought that on for our kids. That was just less than 100 kids, and last year we topped out at about 270. Woo! We weren't sure what we were getting into, were we? That first year, transformation happened. I'll tell you 2 examples. The first one was Karen had everybody in the choir room, and all the kids were sitting there in their chairs, and she said, okay, now how many of you have ever sung in the choir before? Not a single hand went up. And she said, okay, well, let's learn some songs. And that was the beginning. That afternoon when the buses got back to Wesley-Rankin, little Amanda, who was probably first or second grade at that time, came up to me and said, Sarah, guess what? I learned a song today at Trietsch. And she said, do you want to hear it? She didn't wait for me to answer that question. She burst in and said, when those gates swing open wide, I'm going to sit by Jesus' side. I thought, yes, ma'am, you are. Yes, ma'am, you are. Alex is a kid who lives in a house with a towel for a front door. He spends more time on the streets and in the drug houses than he does at his home. He's a kid who has found a place of hope and grace at Wesley-Rankin, and he came to summer camp that first year. In fact, he was the reason we started this summer camp, listening to the community. Alex had been in third grade for 3 years in a row, and he finally got promoted to fourth grade. And he came to my office and he said, Sarah, guess what? I got promoted. I'm going to fourth grade. And I was crying. I'm a crier. And he was excited. And I said, what are you looking forward to most in fourth grade? And Alex said, I get to go to music class. Well, I didn't see that coming. Here's a kid who's in trouble all the time, running drugs, in with the gangs, and he just wants to go to music class. That first summer he was here at Trietsch, I can't even call, I don't know who was teaching, but he learned how to play the flute recorder, and he learned how to play Amazing Grace. He was so excited to come back to Wesley-Rankin and share that with us. He carries that T-shirt that we gave him that year in his backpack to this day. Transformative relationships, godly relationships that aren't about the cape. Will you lose the cape and simply build a godly relationship? Will you risk your normal being transformed? It is a new normal, kingdom godly relationships that are truly transformative. Amanda is still a part of our programming. I know that her relationships that she built that first summer here have continued to drive and be an important part of her life. Will you lose the cape and be a part of a transformative relationship? Liliana is a really lively second grader. She's got curly hair out to here. She's always has a song on her lips. And she calls your Kim Beck, Trietsch's Kim Beck, calls her abuela, which is Spanish for grandmother. Liliana is adopted and doesn't have an extended family, but the relationship that she has built over these years at Mad Camp with Kim Beck speak to abuela, speak to family. Will you lose the cape? Will you take a risk? Valerie, who's in high school right now, still keeps in touch with Camille Reeder. In fact, Camille visits Valerie in the hospital during her frequent visits to the hospital for a seizure condition. Camille's also a friend with her mom. She's developed a kingdom relationship there. And the children may not know Jan Deering's name by name. They call her the lunch lady. They love the lunch lady and their team. The team of lunch ladies is amazing. She plans special food for the children that Jan knows they will enjoy. And Sue Arthur this morning after early service came and shared with me a story. She said the kids were going through the line and one of the children turned to another child next to him and said, "They feed us like they feed their families. They feed us like they feed their families." Can we lose the capes? That's about relationship. Risking, not being the person with all the answers, not being the person with all the resources, but being the person who engages in a godly relationship. Will you bear witness to the love of Christ and to the ongoing messy relationships that we each experience with God? Will you lose the cape? To say to another, "I see you, I hear your voice," this is a godly act. Christ modeled this for us as he ate with sinners, honored lepers, and the despised in the community. He didn't show up with a cape. He showed up to save with an outstretched hand, an open heart. He showed up by hearing a voice that was often silenced. Christ wasn't passing out toys to the children. He was gathering them around him, telling them a story, listening to a story. His ministry was about godly relationships. He built with everyone he met. He bore witness to God in his presence, walking with a community. We're not called to fix or to do anything. We are called to bear witness with kingdom relationships that will do far more than any short-term project. Trietsch has lived this calling in real and transformative ways. And this morning, on behalf of the children and community, the staff of the Wesley-Rankin Community Center, I thank you. I am thankful for you, and I thank you for the way that you have opened your hearts and been a part of transformative, godly relationships for Alex and for Amanda and for the little boy in the lunch line and all of the many others that have been a part of your welcoming here. All of this happened because you were willing to lose the cape. Together we can walk down this path in the name of Christ. I encourage you, walk out these doors, be inspired. Walk out the doors and sign up. Be a part of Mad Camp, be a part of VBS, be a part of Kids Eat Free, be a part of something. Drop the cape and be a part. Take a risk. Amen.